the Gould Mine podcast.
Now, kind of switching gears here a little bit, right? Like, let's talk about the deal flow and like the analysis and whatnot. So, joining a sponsorship group, like you're obviously like you have a dedicated role, or your responsibilities are maybe a little bit more focused. How does that contrast to like the original deals that you were doing, right? Because you were kind of doing everything, right? And so, how did you figure out, okay, what am I good at, and where are my deficiencies that I should be partnering with someone who has those skill sets? Like, how did you go about figuring that out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so when you say you do everything, you really do, right? You're on whatever side it is that you like, looking at properties, properties, underwriting properties, talking to brokers, talking to lenders, organizing your paperwork. So if you have to do lending, you know where everything is. So yeah, it's a lot of work. And then dealing with a property and the property manager and the tenants. And so you start to figure out what you like. So there's things about me. There's things that I've always liked. I love to teach. I love to speak. When you're a sponsor, you have to do a lot of that, like being on this podcast for example. I love doing that. I love talking to people. I love talking to younger physicians and other physicians. I like traveling around the country. So that fits very nicely in investor relations. One of my partners, he's really good at talking to attorneys. He has an accounting background. He's really good with money. Like if you saw some of my personal spreadsheets, like when I was doing my deals, this guy's like I have again, I'm a doctor, so I like to super analyze things. So I've got things all over the place. Like if you look at my desk, you'll see things all over the place. Yeah. So that's not my skill set. So his name is G. So when we met G, I'm like, oh my God, this is like the absolute best thing in the world. And then a skill set that even though I had leadership roles in my career, I've never been around like a big organization leader. And that's the direction I wanted my career to go into in terms of real estate. My goals are to, have $1 billion assets under management. My goals are not what I was doing a few years ago, is having some triplexes and fourplexes and duplexes. So my other partner is a leader. He's a global leader. He's been CEO of hospital systems. He has international connections. In fact, he's traveling to Asia next week, not for our company, but doing the other things that he's good about. So the three of us, we kind of fit perfectly because I'm able to take the things I love in terms of mentoring and talking to other physicians, which would be investor relations. Even when it comes down to talking to brokers, it's a relationship that I really like. G likes to do all the paperwork. Rakesh is kind of leading this group along. We're now big enough that we have people who help us underwrite. We have expertise in terms of, people who can look at CoStar and tease through the data and, go through things. We can come up with ideas as a company and run with those ideas and start focusing our interest in different parts of the country and different types of properties. So how I learned what I liked and what I didn't like, well, I had to do it all, like you're saying. And I learned I didn't like, talking to property managers and dealing with tenant issues. Stuff like that stresses me out. I'll even give an example in my own personal house. Like we had to get the vents clean and the carpets clean. Like that sounds stupid, right? If it was one of my investment properties, you just, make a call, whatever. That kind of stuff stresses me out. It's like, I don't want to deal with that. So by testing things out, knowing my own personalities, knowing what I'm good at, I got to, in the development of Type 3 Capital, I'm able to take advantage of that.
What similarities and what are the biggest differences and what are the biggest similarities in doing the big deals with Titan 3 and some of the smaller like duplex, triplex? Like what were the main differences and what are some similarities there that you found?
Yeah. So the saying is, right, the saying is it takes the same amount of work to have 3 units versus 300 units. It's true. The difference with 300 units is you have partners. So I think it'd be harder doing 300 units by myself than doing 3 units because you have to get capital, you have to do all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I probably put just as amount of work on, these bigger deals now than I did on a 2-unit, a 3-unit, or 4-unit.
In what you're doing right now, right? Like how are you, speaking of capital, right? Like how are you going about sourcing that capital right now? Like what are some of the main drivers for obviously you've got a web presence, right? So like I'm assuming that you're getting some traction, just kind of like getting on these podcasts and whatnot. But like outside of that, are you guys doing some marketing? Like what does it look like for you right now?
Yeah. So it's, our thought leadership platform is a lot of it is geared on LinkedIn. We also do meetups, webinars. We go to different meetings, and so to interact with people and get to know people. And it's our direct connections. I've been in practice for a while, so I know a lot of doctors. And a lot of those doctors know who I am as a person in terms of how I practice medicine and, my personality and my ethos. And it's a lot of purely networking in terms of how my investors come in. My partner who plays a leadership role, he has, through his leadership connections, he has bigger investors, if you will, investors who can write bigger checks. So that's kind of his expertise in terms of bringing in investors. So it's direct contacts. It's like the little stuff they talk about, reaching out to people, making phone calls. Yeah, of course, we're a little bit more sophisticated that we have our CRM where investors go in and we can keep a constant kind of drip campaign with them and bring them in through our marketing campaign to continue to stay in discussion with them. I'm sure it's the case with you and every other guest that you've had on. It's those relationships that you build over time that develops that interest. I've had investors who I've talked to for over a year, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it's like, hey, I'm ready to invest with you. So those things happen,